Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony, wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. To start the new year, my guest today is Don Curley, a member of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners, in his case representing the 6th Ward. Happy New Year, Don.
Happy New Year to you, Rick. Thank you.
Glad to have you here. You and your colleagues had a very busy 2016, and from the looks of things, going into 2017, the pace isn't going to let up much.
Yes, very busy. Important things from a local perspective, so we did our best to address them all.
Well, let's start with a recap of high points, I hope, and maybe only a few low points in 2016.
Sure.
What was on the board's agenda?
Okay, well, we did a lot of things. So, foremost among them was the Willows, which I had talked to you about.
Oh, yes.
There was some issue about whether that property would be put to a commercial use. There were some issues about how to best preserve the mansion. Where we are now is we developed a continuum with costs in it from our old option to conventional demolition on one end, and in hopefully the early part of 17 we will address that, commit money to it, and then take that for action in 18, the subsequent year.
Why should residents who don't live in the 6th Ward, why should they care about the Willows, the mansion, and all the brouhaha around it?
Sure. I think it's for the same reasons that Gifford Pinchot and Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir cared about it 110 years ago. So we live in a world where we have lots of asphalt, lots of roads. We're making more of that every day. We're not making more natural space. We're not making more parks for the most part. So what we have needs to be preserved. In Radnor, that is our most natural and our most preserved parcel, so it's important for us to keep it.
That makes sense. But it has been an issue, at least from my standpoint, because I live near it. I've been at many years, if not most of the meetings, the commissioners' meetings. Why has it taken so long? This issue about the Willows has gone on for at least 6 or 7 years.
Yes. And
has been unresolved, with attempts to come up with a solution that would be satisfactory to all parties, and it's been impossible.
Very good.
To come up with a solution.
So it took us, so one reason is it's government. Government takes longer. It should take longer because it has more stakeholders. So we have a lot of stakeholders, and we have processes that we can and should do, and we also must do. So that's one reason. A second reason would be that we had a solution. It wasn't a solution that was unanimously supported. I did not support it. And then that solution probably took 3 years for for everyone to realize that it was a failed solution.
That was the caterer?
Yes, yes. And we had multiple caterers in there. So again, it wasn't a solution that was unanimously supported, but it was one that the board earnestly pursued, or the township earnestly pursued, only to realize that it couldn't happen, and then essentially it had to start over. So that's probably the most significant reason for the delay. Okay.
Just as heated has been the controversy over the property, and which ward is that?
Second ward. At the Penn Medicine property, the old Biomed property, yes. So that's been probably the most significant, most time-consuming aspect of 16 for us. So a little background, the site's been dormant for several years. Biomed came in, they proposed alternative uses. And their idea was, if you let us do these alternative uses, the buildings will get bigger, the activity will get bigger, but we will spin off cash and we will invest that back in the infrastructure, and we will mitigate the traffic associated with bigger development, more intensity. Again, not unanimously supported. In the end, probably not supported by the township, but that took a good year and a half to go through. Then the township made its own attempt to do something similar. Again, not unanimously supported. I don't know where that would have went, but the same idea is, if we can do more, we can mitigate the effect of doing more. So I was not supportive of either one of those proposals. Penn Medicine came in with a third iteration. Theirs was not let us do more. Theirs was let us cap the amount and do something different, something that produces less traffic. And if it produces less traffic, then you have less to mitigate. You don't have to mitigate it. It's you're producing less. So it took us probably 6 months to get through the land development portions of that. We came to, the board voted it, not unanimously. I did support this latest proposal. And we were relatively satisfied with the land development aspects of it. There's some undecided tax implications that we will have to address. And so now we're waiting on some feedback on the land development aspects from the Delaware County Planning Commission, from the Radnor Township Planning Commission, and then sometime, I'm anticipating at the earliest late January, probably February, March, we'll be into having this on our plate for more decision making.
But that's a relocation of an existing business, Penn Medicine.
Yes.
From one location in Radnor, just down the road on King of Prussia Road.
So it's, there's
so would there be a material difference in traffic?
Well, there would be a material difference in traffic because something would fill in where the old Penn Medicine site was.
Of course, yes.
So the whole issue to me is what is the baseline? If the baseline is there's no traffic because the building is empty, then there's no reason to do anything.
Right.
But if the baseline is something is going to go in there, then what I believe it's incumbent upon us to put in what gives us the least traffic impact. So that's what all of us are committed to, whether we might disagree on what gives us the least traffic impact, but I think the board unanimously is committed to uses that reduce traffic.
Is the opposition coming from the school and those associated with the school, which is just across the road?
I would say right now the opposition is coming from those who don't believe that the traffic will be less from the new development than it would be from some prospective other development. Everyone concedes that if you take a site that is undeveloped and you develop it, you will increase the traffic. It's the relative traffic to what would be there depending upon how it's developed.
All right. The next big issue. This was the year we all, as residents, we all got a notice that we were being assessed because of the requirement to repair, replace stormwater sewer pipe and whatnot. Is that right?
Well, we've had that in place for 3 or 4 years now, so nothing.
Maybe this wasn't the year I got the notice.
Yeah, you've had the notice.
Just
probably
felt that
this
way.
is your 3rd or 4th year with that particular notice. So that's not new. I mean, that's one of the things that I wanted to recap. So it's a good segue to it. So we have a stormwater fee. The fee's been in place for 3 or 4 years now. In my opinion, it was very problematic how we rolled it out, meaning that first we collected them. It was sort of, when we're kids, we played games and it was ready, aim, fire.
Right.
And we did fire, ready, aim. So we collected a very large amount of money, in excess of several million before
through assessments?
Yeah, well, through fees, meaning we charged a fee to each property owner.
Right.
And the fee was based upon the some loose formula for your surface area of impervious cover. So we generated a tremendous amount of money. We committed or spent some of that money before we had a budget and before we had a holistic look at projects. And then I don't think we distributed the money in an appropriate manner, meaning we weren't, we were spending it on projects that weren't demonstrated to be effective, things of that sort. Now, from that moment, we gradually made improvements. We have a stormwater group that assists us. They've brought some process to it, and it's been very, very beneficial. We have a budget. We have essentially a cost-benefit process, meaning we look at projects and we can measure the impact of those projects instead of just assuming that we think there will be a benefit, so we will spend a large amount of money. So things are moving in the right direction in that regard. We're still a little behind. We have more money than capability to spend it at the moment, but at least we have a reasonable plan moving forward about how to spend it.
Do we have areas in the township where there's chronic flooding every time we have heavy rains?
Yes,
and
we have.
Is this intended to
Yes, we
correct
have
that?
areas in the township that have chronic flooding. And this is intended to do that. So when we voted for it years ago, my opinion is that what we communicated to the citizens was that we would use this fee to improve some of those types of conditions. And some of the money has been used to do that. And I've supported some of the projects. I've supported the projects that I believe have done that. Some of the money has been used for other things. I've been hesitant to use the money for that. For me, the money should be project-oriented to undo a past flaw, meaning some mistake of planning and engineering from 2 decades ago that results in somebody's intersection being filled with water. We use this money to address that problem.
Okay.
We're moving in that direction. There, we had to sort of push the money away a little bit from operation and maintenance and into capital, but now it is largely and mostly used for capital expenditures.
Is that a permanent fee, or will
yes,
it
that's
be...
a permanent fee until 4 members of the Board of Commissioners decide to change it. I was part of an attempt to try to get it lowered this year because we've got to let the projects catch up with the money.
Yeah.
But the board chose otherwise because there is a backlog of projects. So that the money that we collect today will be spent this year, or at some time it just won't be all spent this year. It'll take 3 or 4 years for us to spend down
But
that.
if I understood what you said a moment ago, it is earmarked exclusively only for the stormwater
Only
project.
for stormwater and mostly for capital intervention.
Yes.
There's some other things in there too. It's about an 80-20 split with 80% plus or minus going toward large capital interventions that we would otherwise not do, and 20% going to operation, maintenance, permitting, administration, things of that sort.
Was this year's process to prepare a budget for next year any different, any more difficult than it has been in past years?
I would say no, not any more difficult, more of the same. Some things were better, some things were worse. So, using stormwater, it was our best year for budgeting stormwater, meaning it was, we had a sort of a list of projects that went out 5 years. We were able to see short-term projects, medium-term projects, long-term projects, and that was probably the healthiest budgeting we've done for stormwater since I've been involved on the board. On the township side, we had some positives and some negatives. This budget is largely sort of an extension of previous budgets. There is not a lot of new discretionary spending. I call that good. And particularly, I've been on your program talking about how we have increased our discretionary spending too much over the last 7 years. So this this budget did not have a lot of increases in discretionary spending. Our healthcare costs did not accelerate at the rate that they had in previous years.
Really?
Which is, yes.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know that they could sustain the
double-digit increases.
Yes. Well, we had been on the municipal side. Ours had been, the rate of increase had just been astronomical. So it's still increased.
Yes.
It's the rate of increase was. So we didn't see that astronomical rate that we saw before. And our revenue continues to be very positive. So our business privilege tax continues to be very positive. The real estate market in Radnor continues to be healthy. So we see the revenue coming in. So in that regard, it was very positive and a relatively easy year for us. The principal difficulty was that we don't have a dedicated funding stream for capital. And what we have done in the past is used sort of unexpected revenue or budget surpluses, meaning that we collect more than we budgeted, and then we had a formula set aside to use that for various things, one of which was our capital. So we've been able to fund our capital program from a combination of expected revenue and unexpected revenue. This year, we had some difficulties with that, and what we ended up doing was taking money that I think would have gone to capital, and we shifted that over to pay debt service on our previous land purchases.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of a shift that I'm not comfortable with. To me, we have to buy. We bought the land. It was the Audra purchase.
Right.
I voted against that. I don't feel that was a good use of our money for this reason, that we were essentially paying the debt service on that at the expense of capital. We treaded water this year with capital. We funded it from without a permanent source.
Right.
And then probably very early in 17, we're going to look at this and we're going to start earlier in 17, try to come up with a plan that lasts a little bit more than 1 year.
Have we heard the last of the Audra issue?
Well, from
with the purchase and
side,
the development
yes,
of the land?
I think so. I mean, the purchase is done. It's not going to be outdone. Nobody's or undone. Nobody's trying to undo it. The applicant has property rights. They are using them to develop it. Nobody's trying to undo that. The next step for us is the access of it. We're not using it. It's, you know, if we buy it, we spend you know, some couple of $100,000 an acre for it, then we have to be able to walk on it, throw a ball on it, toss a frisbee on it, things of that sort. So that's the next step for us.
We couldn't just look at it the way it is?
Yeah, some will. Some will advocate for that. I have to say, I think we got to use it to, you know, at that level, I don't see putting a fence around it and turning it into a, you know, something like a museum. So,
but it means more traffic, more congestion in an area that has been pristine for all these years.
Well, yes,
I know that's the price.
It's a park.
Progress,
you know, it's owned by the citizens, so you know, it's not for the. It's not for just, you know, so those that live near it can look at it. It has to be used like every other park. So.
Is payroll the biggest part of the budget?
Yes, typically in municipalities, staffing is, and when you say staffing, you include the pension costs, the healthcare costs, overhead costs, things of that sort.
And how are we doing in the entitlement programs in the township? Any better than surrounding townships and municipalities?
Well, we made one significant change in probably 3 or 4 years ago. So, you know, we don't have a pension for the non-uniform employees, or the new non-uniform. So those that started with a pension kept it.
No pension at all? Or
yes,
defined,
no pension at all.
And what do the uniformed employees have? Defined benefit or defined contribution?
Defined contribution.
401k?
Excuse me, defined benefit.
Defined benefit.
Yes, so that's, you know, that maintenance of the pension is an ongoing issue.
And expensive.
Yes, expensive, and a big part, so big round numbers, circa 2009, I think we were something on the order of $1 million a year in annual pension payments. Circa 2010 or 2017, we're something on the order of $4 million in pension payments. And so significant amount of money at our scale, and it's going to be at anyone's scale for the most part, but particularly at our scale. And we have to fully understand it. The municipalities in general are much better at understanding it than they were 15 years ago. This was one of the things that we addressed at the end of 2016, probably October, November. So the CARFAC group looked at a plan to pay the pension, to pay down early. Yes. And we chose not to do that and to look at it again in 17. So the issue as I saw it was that we are on most municipal pensions are underfunded. Radnor's is underfunded, which means at some point during your history you did not meet the expectations of both your finance people and the actuarial assumptions on mortality. It sounds terribly cold, but the reality is people are living longer and that's more expensive for municipalities. So as part of that, the state puts you on what I'll call a glide slope to paying it down. They don't make you, if you have a deficit, they don't make you close it in 1 year. They give you many, many years to close that. The problem occurs when you have that year after year after year, you don't close it. So it gets bigger rather than smaller. So we made two changes to the pension system, which I certainly hope and I believe will reduce that problem. One is we made a couple of changes. One is the reduction of the, there's no pension for the for the non-uniform employees. So that will, if something was broken, it will not break as fast, you know, at that point. We made some changes to the actuarial assumption. Again, a minor change, just 1/4% to the assumption.
The investment. For
the investment, yes. But over time, that will force us to put more money into the fund each year. So the hope then is that we would that gap would close, and what we have to decide is the current sort of glide slope sufficient, or do we need to put more? Do we need to accelerate the rate at which we're putting money into it?
Do we match the 401k? The substitute for the defined benefit program.
Well, I I'm not sure what we that particular the pension we did not when the non-uniform pension was it was just for the new hires. When that was eliminated, it wasn't substituted with a defined contribution. That is a method of doing it. Believe me, there are advantages and disadvantages to either one.
Yes.
But we, for better or for worse, we chose to simply eliminate the pension and the employees agreement.
Not unlike most employers in the private as well as the public sector.
Yes, and it's relatively easy to add a defined contribution plan.
Yes.
That won't be too hard if we decide, 3, 4, 5 years from now, or 1 year from now, or next month, that we need that in order to be competitive. Then I think we can do that relatively easily.
The difference, of course, is it puts the burden on the employee.
Yes.
To make decisions, investment decisions, and make some projections about what the benefit will be 10, 15, 20 years out.
And the township has all the risk in that defined
defined benefit.
Defined benefit. And
that's why we love it.
Yes, in the business world, the businesses have recognized put some of the risk on the on the
in healthcare as well as pension. Yep.
So, but we've got a lot of constraints on us that it's not very easy to affect these pensions. They have to go through us.
So as an elected representative who was elected to watch out for the best interest of the township as well as its residents and hope to somehow to balance those two, looking back on 2016, are you happy with the progress made by the township?
Yes,
very
very
the
happy.
Board of Commissioners?
Yes. So to a man and a woman, all very hardworking, all very earnest, honest, certainly they have my respect. And it takes 7 of us. We don't agree on everything. Politics, by definition, you're not supposed to agree. It's supposed to benefit from perspective, and so we get perspective. And I'll reach out to the staff. It's an honest, hardworking group. Great quote from Teddy Roosevelt saying something to the effect of, what government needs is honesty and common sense, and I think we have honest, hardworking people that are helping us each day and caring for our money. So
I agree.
I'm comfortable on that.
From what I've seen, I have attended many more meetings because of the Willows, and I have to commend anybody who runs for public office and chooses to serve. It is a thankless job.
Well,
it's hard work.
Thank you.
So thank you on behalf of the residents, for you and your colleagues.
Thank you.
Regardless of your political stripes. For what you do. All right, so now we're closing out. We've closed out 2016. We're looking ahead to 2017. With the exceptions of a couple of things we talked about, is the agenda is essentially the same? Willows is rolling over. Some of the other issues you talked about, stormwater and so on.
Many of those are rolling over. I have some sort of individual initiatives that I'm going to try to push out. So the rollover initiative, certainly the Willows, as we discussed, rolls over. I'm hoping we can make a structural decision and fund it in 17 and then build it in 18. Yes, and so we'll see if that happens. PLO remains to be seen. So there are that's the zoning change.
For Penn Medicine.
Yeah. So my review of it at this point is that the Board of Commissioners is relatively content with the land use aspects of the prospective change. The tax implications are to be determined, so we'll have to make sense of that. The budget will be like the last budget, I would think, and we'll with some changes we're going to get into the capital side of it a little earlier, get into that pension decision a little earlier about whether we want to accelerate the rate at which we're funding the pension or not.
There are no other major land acquisitions in the works, are there, in the township?
No, I don't
think
that
there's
I'm aware
anything
of.
left.
Yes, there are. I'm not aware of any. There's a borrowing initiative. So the staff in the CARFAC presented a request or a recommendation to borrow $3 million for capital projects. The board decided not to. Now that'll come up again as part of the capital decision-making process.
I think a big issue that the township, not just Radnor Township, but every township, every municipality faces, is how to keep residents informed so they understand the issues, the problems of struggling with some of these issues, and then when a resolution is finally made, the reasons for that particular compromise in most cases. What is Radnor doing now? What do you think Radnor could do better to keep 30,000 people or so better informed about what's going on?
Yeah. So great question, because it's one of the, if you had asked me this 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I wouldn't give you the same answer that I'm giving now. So a couple of things come to mind. It is great how much contact I get from my day-to-day, meaning I go to a Little League game because my kids are in it, and I get input at the Little League game. I get it at church, I get it at Boy Scouts, I get it at Township events. So you hear the rank and file give you their informal feedback, and it's very valuable because it lets you sort of see it in the continuum. You get, it isn't one person telling you the story, it's lots of different people, and it's, you know, it's the rank and file, ordinary, regular folks. So that's probably my most valuable way of getting feedback. My second, and again, this was also a surprise, I get a lot of feedback from people who say, yes, I watched the meeting on TV, or so.
Yes.
So the TV to me is a very valuable way of getting our story out. And, you know, again, I wouldn't have said this 7 years ago. What the TV does is or one of the things it does, you know, by putting meetings on TV and putting issues on TV, is it gets balance to the issues. So in politics, in government, you want to control the mechanism of the narrative. The TV gives ample opportunity for multiple narratives, so you get to see different narratives, and then you can decide on your own which one you like. So you know, that's one of the things I'm hoping that we will do in 17, is we had traditionally put all our meetings on TV. At least it's my understanding, before I was commissioner, all the meetings were on TV. In an attempt to expand what we do, to do more things and do them better, we probably are meeting more, and so some of our boards and commissions are not on TV regularly. My feedback from citizens is that it would be best to get those meetings on TV. So I'd like to see more televised meetings rather than less.
And again, to clarify, we are talking about the Radnor television, the government channel.
Yes.
That is provided by and through Comcast and Verizon.
Yes.
And on Comcast, it's channel 5. On Verizon, it's channel 30, the public access.
Very good. Yeah.
I had no idea that, until I did a little research, that the channel is used so much, with so much programming, and how much of it is live. Your commissioners' meetings are live, right? They are.
Yes.
They are later rebroadcast.
Yes. And I get a lot of feedback that starts with, I watched the meeting of the blankety blank, and here's what I think. And that is very valuable. Yes, that's very valuable feedback for me, because it connects me to the ordinary citizen who might not be able to stay until a meeting ends at 11 o'clock at night.
Maybe there should be another show, though, that is dedicated just to feedback from folks who watch. Half-hour programs.
Well, I'm open for it. There's a sort of like a town hall style meeting.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of do that here at Radnor Studio 21 with you and the other commissioners who come on and talk about issues going on in your ward as well as throughout the township. But it would be interesting to have a new show on the government channel that is more engaging with the public. The control room tells me we're running out of time. It flew by, but we'll have plenty of opportunities, I hope, in 2017 to stay current with the progress you and your folks will continue to make throughout the year. Any other parting words?
No, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Have a great 2017.
Thank you, Rick. You too.
Same goes for you. I hope you all take care of yourselves, take very good care of yourselves this new year. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony.